Okay, my name is Henry Dennison, and I'm running for the office of Governor of the state of Washington on the Socialist Workers' Party ticket.
And what made you want to run for this office in particular?
We think that it's important to get a program out there that we campaign around 365 days a year. We think it's very important to put it forward as an election platform now as always. And the office of governor is an important office in the state, and that's how we decided to run for it.
And why the Socialist Workers' Party? Why not be I suppose, Democrat?
Because the Socialist Workers' Party is a party of working people. It's a party that puts forward a revolutionary program aimed at taking power out of the hands of the wealthy minority who own the mines, the mills, the banks, and so on, and instituting a government of workers and farmers. The Democrats, as well as the Republicans, defend the system as it is and simply do not support that.
And from your perspective, what are the biggest issues facing our state right now?
Well, I think the issues are the same in our state as in all states and around the world. And that's that the economic crisis that we face with right now is not caused by the COVID-19 crisis, but it was revealed by it. It's a deep economic, social, moral crisis of the capitalist system. And as long as that system remains in place, this profit-driven crisis will deepen. There's a crisis of profitability, and those who own capital are taking it out on our backs. We think that the only solution for this is to build a movement. And part of that, I'd like to say, part of building that movement is to put the Socialist Workers' Party on the ballot for as many offices as possible. We are currently working to get onto the ballot for our presidential and vice presidential candidates. Allison Kennedy, who will be on in a moment, is running for president, Malcolm Jarrett for vice president. And even though it's extremely difficult given the COVID-19 conditions, the pandemic conditions, social distancing, everything, we're still faced with quite a task of collecting signatures, holding convention, collecting signatures, and we're doing everything we possibly can to comply with these regulations. The state opened up the ballot for gubernatorial candidates, but not for the presidential candidates. So we're proceeding to collect as many signatures as we possibly can on nominating petitions. And I would like to just give the information for that. Our convention is this Saturday on the 25th. It's at 5418 Rainier Avenue South. We ask people to come to, this is our campaign headquarters, to sign a nominating petition to put our candidates on the ballot. If people are uncomfortable about coming down here, we certainly understand that. They can email us at swpseattle@gmail.com. And that's and if they email us a request, we can email them a nominating petition, and that nominating petition can be signed and mailed back to us. And our phone number is 206-323-1755. And so I wanted to put that plug in early because this is a big part of our campaign right now.
Yeah, thank you. In this country, socialist is often used as an insult, and most people don't even understand what it actually means. How do you explain it to people when you're first meeting them and they don't have any idea?
We say that socialism is the working class and political power. Socialism as we mean it. There are different stripes of socialism, but this is the working class in power is what we mean, not a bloated welfare bureaucracy in a capitalist country. It's not a police state run by a bureaucratic dictatorship, but the working class in political power, deciding over the uses of the resources of society and providing for the common good, not on the basis of private profit, but on the basis of what is needed.
So our state has a really regressive tax system where the poor end up having a much larger burden than the rich do. What would you do about that?
Well, first, we do not feel that taxes should come out of the wages of working people. Basically, we are paid for our labor for our time on the job. We're paid a small fraction of what we actually produce. And then at the end of the year or ongoing out of each paycheck, a certain portion of that we have won in struggle from the bosses, we get taken from our checks, and that's used to maintain society, to maintain a state structure. And I don't mean the state of Washington. The wealth that we create all wealth, and yet out of the pittance that we keep from our labor, we are taxed in order to maintain the institutions of the state, from the cops to the courts to you name it, the entire state structure. And we don't feel that this is in any way just for working people. So that was, but we do not also proceed on schemes. We don't proceed on the tax Amazon scheme or whatever. This is what we put forward is a general struggle against capitalism itself. We do not think that rather than saying, well, if we tax this and tweak that, then everything will get better, we say what we need is political power, and this will not come out of a gubernatorial decree or anything like that. This will come, as all social progress has come, from the independent struggles of working people, from our unions. Now, on the way there, we make specific demands on the state. We demand, for example, a jobs program to put people to work. We think this is one of the most fundamental things that we have to do. We say we need to conduct a fight for workers' control. And this ties in very much for control on the job. I want to make it clear. This ties into, I spent quite a bit of time in Yakima, about a month and a half ago, when packing plant workers at a number of the fruit packing companies walked out on strike. They were demanding basic safety conditions. It started out around the COVID-19 crisis, but a lot of other issues immediately came to the fore. But they wanted protection against this virus. They weren't demanding to stay home. They were demanding safe working conditions. And they walked out. They had no unions, but they stood up and they fought and they demanded it. And where they walked out, they won very specific gains, including the formation of committees of the workers to represent them in dealing with management. And they won gains on these basic health questions on the job. We think that they set an example that should be emulated by working people everywhere. We think that this is an extremely good example of how the beginnings of a fight for workers' control over production and over safety we think it's a good beginning. We think that this is what it looks like as we start down that road.
Well, it really does seem like capitalism has totally failed at dealing with this pandemic, and it's just, in the United States in particular, it's just getting worse and worse and worse. How do you think we should have handled this from the beginning?
Well, it's first I want to say that the one of the fundamental problems we have, like I say, I don't have reforms that I can say, if only we'd done this, it would be much better. There's only one place on earth where healthcare is not a commodity, and that's in Cuba. And it's because when they made a revolution, they decided as they made the revolution, they made the commitment that healthcare would not be provided as it's not for profit. It wouldn't be just a government program, but a fundamental right of human beings because it's needed, not because somebody can make a profit off of it. Every place else on earth, healthcare is delivered as a commodity. If you look at what the pharmaceutical companies are talking about now, about how they're going to make their money back on medicines to deal with the virus, whether it's to prevent it or treat it, you see that this is not just in the United States it's like this, but the one place where the virus is truly under control is where people volunteer to help each other out. The medical system is set up for house-to-house visits. If people need help, it's followed up with social worker visits. It's when farmers have to quarantine, volunteers come to help make sure that the crops are taken in, that the farm work is done. This is just a small picture of it. This is only possible if you take the resources of society and use them in the interests of human needs rather than in the interests of private profit. But in the system we have now, healthcare is no more available because we need it than food is available because we need it. Both of them are available as long as somebody can make a profit off of it. And on both ends, the consumers of the people who need to eat and the people who raise the food pretty much get to suffer the consequences of problems with the profit-driven delivery system.
You're really representing a kind of fundamental shift in thinking about how the world should be operating. And right now, more and more people they're losing faith in capitalism. Is it hard to explain to them these alternative ideas to the world?
No, it's not. And I've been involved in fighting to build the Socialist Workers' Party for many, many years. It's getting easier and easier to explain it. More and more people are fundamentally questioning what they've been told for year in and year out on how this system works. And that's what we find when our main method of campaigning, whether we've got an election going on or not, is we go door to door in working class neighborhoods, and we are finding a deep shift in thinking, exactly as you said, a deep shift in thinking among working people.
How would you handle, one thing that here in Seattle, I'm in Seattle, is, the cost of living, and probably everywhere in the state, is just out of control. From your perspective, how could that be controlled, or would that be more of rest by your fundamental philosophy?
This is, as you say, it's not. I don't think that there's a reform that can handle that. There are things that we can demand from that aid be provided for example, for paying for medicine, things like that. We can demand that of the government, of the state that represents the very wealthy. But this is something that's, the cost of things is driven by the profit system. It's not driven by planning, but by what is available and scarcity, and that has to do with everything from rent, which under capitalism, rent and housing costs, which under capitalism is a big part of land rent, basically in the cost of housing, whether you own or they always say you own a house. The bank owns the house and you pay your rent to the bank. But they're not making new land, basically. There's a finite supply of it, and that helps to drive up the cost of housing. But because housing is not considered to be a fundamental right, under the profit system, it simply can't be done. So these are things that we have to fight for. This is another reason to take the decision making out of the hands of those who exist solely to increase their profits. The same thing is true of environmental questions. I believe that a good start for any question of dealing with what has been done and is being done to the natural environment is to look at what is done to the worker in the production process. It is ultimately everything is for sale under capitalism, and including natural resources that a rational person would think might be not what you'd want to tear up and destroy. But as long as a profit can be made from it, somebody will do it until we take that power out of the hands until we take resources, the country, the land, everything away from those who currently use it for the purposes of profit and profit alone.
So in this country, we have this kind of political duopoly where the Republicans and Democrats control everything, basically. And then in this state, we have, where the Democrats pretty much control the state. As someone who represents an alternative party, what are your ideas about how we can get more voices into the political system?
I think that the more voices you're looking for will be, and I don't mean just, people attending town halls and stuff. What we're looking at is what we know is coming from history. Looking at history, we know that as the social and economic crisis deepens, there will be social struggles that break out as more and more people feel that they have no other choice. A couple of good examples, a very good example would be once again the farm workers in Yakima, who felt that they had no other choice but to walk off the job and demand what they needed. We think that this is what we're going to see out of the coming social struggles. The massive outpouring of anger over the murders of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and many others is an example of the possibility of these large social movements starting out. But we think that it's important that they be linked up with other working class struggles, we think it's important that the unions take a position on this and not only lend their name and voice and support, but take action to support these social struggles. I think it was a good example for the longshoremen to go on a coast-wide one-day. They went on strike and held marches and rallies against these killings and brutalities that the police departments have meted out.
So one thing that's always kind of a challenge in talking about like socialism is that, people really try to divide us on artificial lines. What do you do to try to help unite people?
Well, it's when in a lifetime of throughout life I've worked to build organizations of social movements, social protests, to work to expand them, to bring other people to them, to find ways to try to for those involved in social struggles that objectively strengthen the working class to reach a broader audience, and to work whenever I've been a member of a union to bring these social questions into the union, into the floor of the union meeting itself, and to try to bring more people in. This happens on a, it's not trying to pat myself on the back. There's a lot of people who do that. We think that as conditions worsen and more people feel that there isn't really any other choice but to stand up and to fight back, we will see more of this.
Can you tell folks why you should get their vote?
Because I think people should vote for Socialist Workers' Party, for my candidacy, and for other candidates running for office, including Rebecca Williamson running for Congress. But we think that we represent a line of march for our class. We think that the important part of voting for us is to say that, yes, we do need a government of workers and farmers. We want to see these people in office because we like this perspective of broadening social struggles to fight for what our class needs rather than fighting for crumbs, rather than fighting for promised reforms that generally never come to pass.
And if people want to learn more about you and your campaign, where should they go?
They should go to a newspaper, the Militant newspaper. It's been coming out weekly since 1928. And you can find it at www.themilitant.com. And on there you can find not just the current issue, but every issue of the Militant going back to 1928 when it was first published.
Wow, that is something. Well, thank you so much for your time.
And
go ahead. Sorry.
May I one more time say we urge people to come to our campaign headquarters at 5418 Rainier Avenue South in Seattle, in Hillman City, on Saturday to sign a petition or email us if they're concerned about coming down there to swpseattle@gmail.com and request a nominating petition, which we'll mail you a PDF, and then you can mail us back by snail mail the petition, or you can drop it off through the post slot. This is to put Allison Kennedy on the ballot for president and Malcolm Jarrett for vice president. And I thank you very much for this opportunity to speak with you.
You've been listening to Talk to Seattle, and I've been your host, Jason Rigdon. If you liked this episode, would you please share it on social media? Most podcast clients have a little share button. Click that and tell people why they should listen. If you want to support Talk to Seattle, would you please give the show a rating and review on iTunes? It really helps new people discover the show, and it makes me happy. Follow Talk to Seattle on Twitter at TalkToSeattle, and email any questions, comments, or suggestions to jasonrigdon@gmail.com. Thank you so much for listening.